Hi, this is David Farkas with Red Dot Forum. Today, Leica announced the SL2 full-frame mirrorless camera, the follow-up to the original SL Type 601 they introduced 4 years ago. And since then, it's been one of my absolute favorite cameras they've ever come out with. But there's a lot of changes between the SL and the SL2. In this video, I'm going to talk about what's changed, what's new, and why it matters. Lucky for us, I have an SL2 right here. Stick around and we'll get into it. Okay, let's do a rundown of kind of the headlining features and changes on the SL2. Right off the bat, most people are going to notice that the resolution has been increased from 24 megapixels on the SL to 47 megapixels on the SL2. We saw a similar change between the Q and the Q2. And a lot of people probably are wondering, is this the same sensor? The answer is not exactly. It's probably very closely related, but definitely not the same, because the SL2 features two things that the Q2 does not. One is a unique micro lens structure that's going to be well suited to use with M lenses. If you've used M lenses on other mirrorless cameras besides an SL or an M10, you'll know that the wide angles specifically don't perform very well on those sensors with sort of weak corner performance, because there's nothing wrong with the lenses, but those sensors aren't designed to work well with the high incident angle of the M lenses. So first off, the SL and the SL2 have that unique micro lens structure to work with the M lenses. The second thing is, and I think just about as significant as the increase in resolution, is the addition of in-body image stabilization. And that's a 5-axis image stabilizer. A lot of people are saying, well, what's 5 axes? Well, very simple. Tilt, both up and down. Tilt, left and right. Panning, which is side-to-side movement or up and down movement. And rotation. So there you go. There is your 5 axes that the mechanical image stabilization is going to take care of. So it's constantly moving the sensor around when you have that enabled. And it's going to be effective up to about 5.5 stops, which is awesome. What that means is pretty significant, because you can now use any lens that'll fit on a Leica L mount, which is somewhere around 200 to 300 different lens choices at this point. You can use M lenses, R lenses, S lenses with dedicated Leica adapters. You can use PL Cine lenses with this. As well, there is adapters from Novaflex for Canon EF and Nikon F mount. So those can be used on the SL2. And those two Novaflex adapters actually enable autofocus and aperture control from the camera to the lenses. So you have hundreds of lens choices now, as well as TL lenses, which maybe weren't a consideration before with the SL, but now with the increased resolution, you can actually use a TL lens, which is an APS lens for the TL2 and the CL, on the SL2, and still get 20 megapixels in crop mode, which is more than enough for just about anything that you might want to use besides super detailed landscape or architecture pictures that you want to use the full resolution for. So very, very useful, because now all of those lenses are image stabilized, every single last one of them, which is incredible in terms of usability, both for low light still performance, being able to lower down your ISO, shoot at a slower shutter speed and still get tack sharp images. And also for video work, it's great because it means I can go, or any video producer can go and do handheld run and gun without a big gimbal and still get pretty stable looking images because the image stabilizer is going to work both in still mode and for video. So between the 47 megapixel sensor, in-body image stabilization, those two are, I would say, the top headlining features. Working down the list, if we take a look at the back of the camera, in here we've got a brand new 5.76 megapixel OLED EVF. The original 4.4 megapixel LCD EVF on the SL was groundbreaking at the time. In fact, it was years before anyone came close to matching the quality of the viewfinder on the SL. The experience was unmatched for 2-3 years at a minimum, and still the 4.5 megapixel viewfinder on the SL is gorgeous. So it's one of the best viewfinders on the market. But this one, the 5.76 megapixel OLED EVF, is the best. The best that I've personally used, the best that I've seen, because in addition to the new panel, Leica has also implemented an entirely glass optical path for the viewfinder. Now, pretty much every other manufacturer is either using plastic lenses here or a mixture of plastic and glass. Leica is the only manufacturer to use an all-glass optical pathway between the eye cup and the electronic viewfinder panel. You've got great eye relief at 21 millimeters. It's a high magnification viewfinder, and it's also a high refresh rate viewfinder. So the original SL viewfinder was a 60 frame per second or 60 hertz refresh. The SL2 viewfinder is 60 or 120 frames per second. So put it in 120 frames per second and you will be treated to gorgeous, silky smooth, tack sharp images through the EVF. It's another experience completely. Really great. So, okay, we've got the sensor, we've got the stabilization, we've got the gorgeous EVF, and on the back, there has been a little bit of a change here. So we've got a new interface, at least new for the SL. The previous SL had a 4-button interface, so you'd have 4 soft keys around the screen, here and here. The SL2 goes to the unified design direction that we've seen in other recent Leica cameras. The M10, the CL, and the Q2 all have this 3-button interface that you see right here, flanking the side of the LCD. The LCD itself has also gotten a pretty significant upgrade. We've gone from a 2.95-inch LCD with 1 million and change dots on the SL601. On here we have now a 3.2-inch, 2.4 million dot rear LCD, and it's covered with also a touchscreen, just like the previous SL, but now with Gorilla Glass that is scratch resistant, fingerprint resistant, and glare resistant. So it is a really, really nice LCD, and there's a new user interface on here that you can actually interact with directly using the touchscreen. So on the SL, your touchscreen experience was limited to basically playback and review of images, zooming in, moving around the images. Here we can actually interact with the menus and change them without going into the menu system and pushing buttons. Moving on, next big update is the styling. You can see here they've refined the styling on the SL2. We've got this really nice grippy material wrapping all the way around the camera, so it does follow all the way around. On the original SL, there was only the grippy material on the grip, but the camera body itself was just bare metal, or finished metal, but just metal with no grip material. The grip itself has now an undercut, so it's more contoured to your hand, and it's finished with kind of a nice feeling rubber inside there. We also get the addition of 2 function buttons there used to be one button here on the original SL. Now it's split into two. And if you want to know how many function buttons you've got on the SL2 here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, 5. This is actually assignable. It's not just to control the EVF, but you can actually make this another custom button. And then you have the function here. So we have a total of 6 assignable custom function buttons. So if you're missing the 4 customizable buttons around the screen, you now actually have 6, which is great. Things that haven't changed in terms of the interface, we still have the top dial. You still have the shutter release in the same position. We still have the 1.2-inch top LCD display, which is transflective, so that means it's visible in bright daylight as well as backlit for evening operation. We still have the 2 buttons on top, although they now have gotten blacked out instead of silver. And we still have our multi-direction joystick, which is also a button, and our rear thumb dial, which is also a button. Looking at connectivity and ports, the original SL also had a dual memory card setup. So here we've got 2 SD card slots, and both of these card slots are now UHS-II compatible. So you can tell a UHS-II card because it actually has 2 rows of contacts. So we can now load up 2 cards into the camera, giving you options either for failover, which means basically that once you fill up one card, you can then automatically, the camera will go to the next card and start filling that one up. Or you can do redundant shooting, backup shooting, and it will put the same information on both cards. So if you're shooting a DNG only, you're actually going to get 2 copies, 1 to each card, which is really nice peace of mind and a great pro feature. Looking on the other side, we have some pretty big upgrades here as well. So if you shoot video, you're going to be really happy about this. We now have 2 3.5mm jacks for audio, one being the headphone jack and the other for microphone. On the original SL, you had to use an audio adapter. You couldn't just plug directly in here. So this is going to be super nice for video producers. We have an HDMI port. Now on the original SL, we had an HDMI 1.4A port. This is now upgraded to the current state-of-the-art, which is HDMI 2.0B, which enables 18 gigabits per second of data transfer rate, enabling us to shoot up to Cine 4K 60 frames per second at 422 10-bit over HDMI, which is a pretty big upgrade. And lastly, if we take a look on the bottom section, we now have traded out the USB 3.0 port on the SL for a USB 3.1 Type-C port. And what's special about this is it's bi-directional, so you can put the cable in any which way you like. It's the same connector that you might have seen on MacBook Pro. A lot of even Windows machines have this. Android phones have it. It's becoming pretty ubiquitous. It's the new standard connector because it can carry a higher amount of voltage over the wire. Now what that means is that you're going to be able to either charge a battery when the camera's turned off or power the camera when it's turned on. So you can't charge the battery at the same time it's powering the camera, but if you're in a video setup or you're doing a long exposure or you're doing an intervalometer where you're running the camera all night, this is great because you can plug it into a power bank or to a V-mount battery with a breakout cable to USB. Heck, you could even run it off a solar charger as long as you have a USB output. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, if you're in studio, you can just run it off a phone charger. But this is really great, and I'm very happy to see the power option now on the SL2. On the SL, we didn't have an AC power adapter option, which is kind of a drag. So big upgrade here, happy to see it. I touched on video for a minute, but let me just go into a little more detail. The original SL takes incredible video. So it shoots at Cine 4K up to 30 frames per second in Super 35 and 10-bit 422, which is exactly what you're watching right now, although it's shot in 24. But the capability is there. I am actually recording this on an SL601, sending out to an external recorder. This camera ups the game in terms of video because we now jump from Cine 4K 30 frames per second to Cine 4K 60 frames per second. In addition to that, the full HD signal which is 1920 by 1080, that goes a maximum frame rate from 120 frames per second, which is pretty quick, to 180 frames per second, which is definitely faster. So we have some high-speed options as well. Because of the increased processing power of the camera and the UHS-II compatibility, you can actually write a lot of these frame rates to the internal memory card where you couldn't before on the SL601. Or you could, but it was in a compressed 420, 8-bit format. Here we can actually write Cine 4K 30 frames per second, 422, 10-bit right to the internal memory card. It supports a variety of codecs has MOV and MP4 selection, both in long GOP and all-I recording, from codecs spanning from 20 megabits per second if you're really looking to save a lot of space on your memory card, all the way up to a huge 400 megabits per second data rate, which is going to suck down gigabytes per minute of recording. So you need to have fairly large cards or consider going out to the external recorder. So it's got those frame rates, but also a neat little trick, because to my knowledge, the SL2 is the very first camera that can shoot Cine 4K 60 frames per second on a full frame area, in addition to the crop mode. So the crop mode is there for every single video setting, so that if you want to use a peel mount Cine lens, which is APS sized, you can easily do that across the whole range. But it also supports full width sensor recording on almost every format except for the HD 180 and HD 150, as well as a new 5K option, which is in a crop mode, Super 35. But I'm pretty sure that the 5K recording is more geared towards anamorphic shooters who are going to be using a PL mount lens anyway. So I wouldn't suggest using the 5K option for most people, because Cine 4K is actually a much more pleasing image ratio. Talking about the processing. So how in the world are we able to push around all this information? Because part of the upgrade from the SL to the SL2 is we also get much higher frame rate. The SL was already super fast at 11 frames per second, full resolution in raw recording. The SL2 can do 10 frames per second with the mechanical shutter and up to 20 frames per second when using the electronic shutter. And that's in full resolution, recording 14-bit DNG files, which is just a staggering amount of data. And what drives that, along with all these video codecs, is a brand new Maestro III series processor. So this is the third generation of custom silicon that Leica's put into their cameras. The Q2 is pretty fast, and that has a Maestro II series processor, as does the M10, as does the CL, but the SL2 is now the technology leader for Leica with the Maestro III processing architecture, and we can definitely see the speed benefits. When you use the camera, everything is ridiculously fast. From shooting, playback, autofocus, image review, operation, everything just flies on this camera. So I definitely wouldn't consider the original SL to be slow by any measure. It is one of the quickest cameras still on the market. The SL2 just pushes that further. Coming back to connectivity, let's talk about wireless connectivity. The SL already featured built-in Wi-Fi with 802.11g, which is pretty good. But the SL2 is next-generation Wi-Fi, has next-generation Wi-Fi at 802.11ac, which is very fast, and also adds, just like the Q2 did, Bluetooth Low Energy 4.2. What that means is a lot faster and easier connection to the Leica Photos app. There's actually a new version, Photos app version 2 coming, and Leica's rolling out a Photos Professional version, or Photos Pro version, which will work with an iPad and allow for video control and integrated Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom support with one button press, which is pretty neat. So we gotta see how that goes. It's not out yet though. So that is a lot of stuff on the SL2 from the SL. Hopefully you got an idea of the upgrades and the changes and what it can mean to your photography. For me, I'm super excited about this camera. It's just, as much as I love the SL2 just improves pretty much on every single measure. And I think this is gonna be a huge hit for Leica, and it's gonna be great for Leica users. The Leica SL2 goes on sale starting today for a price of $5,995. If you're interested in picking one up, you can do so by clicking the link either in the description down below, or I'll leave a link up here in the video. Just click the little eye icon. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something new about the Leica SL2 today. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. As always, you can go to red.forum.com for the latest Leica news, technical articles, camera reviews, including one coming up on this one with tons of real-world samples and my thoughts. And until then, we'll see you in the next video.